Would anyone else like to share one of the places they chose?
I do.
Yeah?
I chose Eva Castle.
Eva Castle.
Yeah, it's in Kent. I find peace and joy, and they have like 3 mazes, and I love go to the mazes and get lost to figure out how to come out, and then I'll climb up on the tree and look in the maze. You're not supposed to, but that's me being rude. I lost in it, and I'll try go back in it and figure it out, but I still get lost again. But I liked it.
Yeah.
And it's me alone, but I just feel peace, joy. And I sit in the maze with the Cupid. I sit there on the statue and I daze out for hours, but I find joy there. I find peace.
Welcome back to the 3rd episode of Reclaiming Resistance. I'm your host, Kat. In this episode, we join one of our creative writing workshops. Yatou, who's a writer, is facilitating the session. She has asked the group to think specifically about what joy means and to think about this within the context of people, places, and activities. This space and session is a meditative one where the women reflect on identity, memory, and survival.
I would like us to kind of follow this theme of joy to kind of go towards the more positive stories we can think of, I think. But it might mean something different for everyone. So that's why I'm saying maybe let's go around the table and you can introduce yourself and just say what comes to your mind when you hear the word joy.
Okay, joy. I got joy. Well, joy is something that makes you free, basically. Makes you free, makes you believe that, no matter what is happening in your life, there's still going to be a piece of joy in you. You decide to keep that joy. So you, the one, make yourself happy or not. So it's like positivity, basically, because joy is a positive side.
So I'm hearing from you, it's a choice. You choose to center joy.
Yeah.
For me, joy is the happy moments shared with family and friends. Joy for me is the moments you relieved and it puts a smile on your face, even when that moment has gone. But sometimes when you think about it, it puts a smile on the face. That for me is joy.
For me, joy is a belief and a trust into myself. And believe in God as well, like to give me that courage and strength into myself. And faith into people around me that will support me to get that joy out around, and color as well is joy for me.
Yeah.
Color for me, yeah. And nature as well is joy for me. But putting the faith into yourself, like you can go through that. And with the support we're getting, like here, and God's support as well. So we will go through it and we will get to the tunnel and to the light, Yeah, just keep the hope and faith into yourself that we can do it.
Yeah. I think we should start then with thinking about words. I want to do a quick activity. We can do a couple of sessions of this, but the first activity is to build our word bank, right? So I want each of you to have your favorite words on a piece of paper that you can always look back to. And to build the word bank, I want to take 5 minutes.
Domestic workers are among the most invisible and unprotected workers in the UK. Many are migrant women employed in private homes where isolation, exploitation, and abuse can go unseen. Without secure immigration status or access to legal support, domestic workers are often at heightened risk of trafficking and modern slavery, forced to work long hours, underpaid or unpaid, and sometimes subjected to violence. Their experiences are shaped by racism, class, and gendered power imbalances, making specialist support and advocacy vital. Today, I'm speaking with Avril Sharp from the organisation Kalayaan. They are a charity supporting domestic workers facing exploitation. We talk about the challenges these women face behind closed doors and how their circumstances put them at risk. Can you tell me a bit about Kalayaan and your role there?
Kalayaan's a small charity that provides advice, support and advocacy to migrant domestic workers. This workforce is predominantly female, and the majority of clients that come to see us are from the Philippines, Indonesia and India. Some of these workers are working for good employers who treat them well and uphold their rights as workers. But some workers have fled abusive employment and come to see us for advice on this and what their immigration options are and how they might be able to hold these employers accountable. I work in a team of 7, and we also have a great group of volunteers. Kalayaan can provide immigration advice and some basic employment advice and provide other support according to individual need. Kalayaan is also a first responder organisation to the National Referral Mechanism, or NRM, which means that as a charity we hold a special status to be able to identify and refer clients we believe are survivors of slavery and or human trafficking to the government for formal identification. The other part of my role is taking the frontline experience that Kalayaan has and developing campaigns to secure changes that would mean that workers are safe at work and able to challenge abuse when it arises.
How did you come into this work?
So I used to work as an immigration caseworker for a legal aid firm. I have my best friend to thank me for getting me an interview there. At this firm, my supervisors were and still are specialists in representing slavery survivors. So at the very start of my career, I was working on these types of cases, trying to secure protection for clients who had been exploited in the UK. What inspires me to do this work? I particularly get work fulfillment from helping a client, breaking down a legal process which appears daunting, and empowering them as best as I can so that they understand what's happening and ultimately helping them to access justice in whatever form that may be, whether secure immigration status, compensation, or an apology.
Why are domestic workers in particular vulnerable to trafficking?
So there are a number of factors in issue here. The majority of clients that we see at Kalayaan migrate abroad in the hope of earning a decent wage and being able to support loved ones back home. The drive to provide for their families doesn't diminish because these workers have suffered abuse, and in fact any absence from the workplace can exacerbate this. Other factors are that this work takes place behind closed doors, away from regulatory oversight, with many workers not knowing where or who to turn to if they experience workplace abuse or harassment. Many who come to Kalayaan tell us they fled their employers without knowing anyone in the UK and took the risk in not having a place to stay or money of their own, but either could not endure the abuse and worried for their safety, or had not been paid and worried how their families would survive without their help.
What issues particularly affect domestic workers or affect them disproportionately compared to other groups of people?
Workers report to Kalayaan a whole host of issues. These can range from labour law breaches, like failure to comply with the national minimum wage, or things like having an employment contract, to the more extreme types of abuse, such as physical and sexual abuse, being provided with no or inadequate food, and a worker having no bed of their own. In terms of a recent positive development, until last year there was a legal loophole that permitted employers to avoid paying their live-in domestic workers the national minimum wage on the grounds that they were a member of the family. Known as the Family Worker Exemption, the brilliant legal charity Yatou brought a challenge to this on behalf of a migrant domestic worker, arguing that this provision disproportionately affected women. After a long campaign lasting over a decade, the previous government laid regulations to remove this exemption, which was a great result for workers and campaigners.
Is there a demographic that is particularly affected by this issue?
The vast majority of people that we see at Kalayaan are women from the Philippines. This tallies up with the number one nationality that applies for the overseas domestic worker visa. The second and third nationalities we see most at Kalayaan are Indian and Indonesians.
How does Kalayaan support survivors of trafficking?
So Kalayaan is a UK designated first responder organisation to the National Referral Mechanism, or NRM. This is the system that the UK uses to formally identify survivors of trafficking and modern slavery and provide them with support whilst waiting for that decision, which can take several years. In order for a survivor to access the NRM, they must be referred by a first responder organisation. This includes statutory agencies like local authorities and the police, and there are currently 10 non-statutory organisations, of which Kalayaan is one. So when a worker first comes to Kalayaan, we will speak with them about their experiences abroad and in the UK. This will help us determine whether the person meets the legal definition of a survivor, and if so, we can then discuss with them what the NRM is, what protections it provides, and if they wish to be referred or not. Once in the NRM, Kalayaan will work alongside a number of other stakeholders to best support clients. This includes the Salvation Army and their subcontractors, lawyers of different practice areas, healthcare professionals, and the police.
In 2023 and 2024, Kalayaan published reports in which you described the NRM as near breaking point. What are the problems that you identify with it?
So, if you strip it back, the numbers of survivors coming forward and requesting a referral to the NRM has been on an upward trend since records began, and there is every indication that this number will continue to rise. The current cohort of first responder organisations is becoming increasingly smaller in its capacity to respond to this need, meaning that we're having to turn people away and they are left at unacceptable risk, including being at risk of re-trafficking.
What impact is this having on victim survivors of trafficking?
So in our updated report in 2024, we included the story of Teresa, who was, and I think still is, supported by the charity the Latin American Women's Rights Service. Her story is a really difficult one, but I would encourage listeners to go and read it. Essentially, Teresa is a single mum. She does not have immigration status in the UK and was forced into a precarious living situation as she does not have the right to rent. Teresa was introduced to Laws by someone she met at a food bank who identified indicators in her case that she was a slavery survivor. Laws then approached a first responder to discuss a potential referral to the NRM with her, but given capacity and resource issues, there was a delay, during which time a tenant staying at Teresa's place tried to rape her in front of her child. Teresa was too afraid to report what had happened to the police, given her immigration status, and she then became homeless. Social services were made aware, but they took no action. Laws then assisted Teresa to speak with a different first responder, who was eventually able to complete an NRM referral, and Teresa able to access support. Disappointingly, despite Kalayaan raising the alarm about the dangers of survivors not getting a timely referral to the NRM, the government has given no commitment to reviewing the current cohort of first responder organisations and looking to expand this, or to give extra resources to the existing organisations already doing this work.
Are there any particular impacts this has had for women such as your service users?
In cases where Kalayaan is not able to assist for whatever reason, we will always endeavour to assist people to find access to the NRM via another first responder and ask that they keep us updated with any barriers that they encounter so that we can continue to flag this with the policy officials in government.
What steps does the government need to take to protect Black and minoritised migrant women who are survivors of trafficking?
I think it's a really important question. There's a lot that needs to change in order that the UK is meeting its responsibilities to survivors. I think the government urgently needs to review and look at its strategy on trafficking and modern slavery, including work on prevention. The current terms of the Overseas Domestic Worker Visa has been shown to be facilitating the abuse and exploitation of an especially vulnerable workforce, and there are other restrictive visa regimes that are also seeing a sharp rise in people coming forward and reporting abuse and needing to access NRM protections. We at Kalayaan know from speaking with workers and collecting data on their experiences in the UK that vulnerable workers are best protected and rates of abuse are driven down when they have rights that keep them safe at work, including being able to leave and change employer. In terms of changes to the NRM, Kalayaan would like the government to urgently establish a recruitment process for prospective organisations to be able to become first responder organisations. This would mean that no survivor is turned away. We would also want to see all survivors in the NRM granted the right to work to assist in their recovery and prevent their re-exploitation. And Kalayaan has published a series of mini reports looking at the many reasons why access to work is so important, which are all available to read on our website.
For people listening to this podcast who are interested in the issue, is there anything that you would recommend that they could do to help victim survivors of trafficking?
I think listening to this podcast is a great introduction to this area. It's quite complex with intersecting policy areas and considerations to be mindful of. I think familiarising yourself with Kalayaan's website and other specialist frontline organisations, learning about the issues and the campaigning work is a great start. Kalayaan would not be able to do the work that we do if not for our volunteers. So if listeners are able to volunteer some time, a few hours a week, we'd love to hear from you.
What keeps you motivated to keep doing this work?
I've been at Kalayaan for 9 years this year, so I've been able to see the huge transformation that women go through. In a lot of cases, the women I worked with and supported 9 years ago are now actively involved in Kalayaan and are taking a leading role in using their voice to demand change. We are not a by and for organisation, but there is so much that Kalayaan can learn from the people that we work with. It's really awe-inspiring work, and I feel incredibly privileged to have played a small part in it.
We're at the end of the first session of the creative writing workshop, and the women are reading their own stories aloud. These pieces reflect not only today's theme of joy, but of memory, survival, humour, and hope, written in their own words, in their own time.
My story is about Paris. Landing on the magnificent runway of Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. On a nice sunny afternoon, my joy overbounds. Seeing another country in Europe, the warm welcome of immigration authorities, walking through the airport into the underground train, and checking into the beautiful ambience of Paris Marriott Champs Hotel. The cozy hotel room and the lovely smell of the nicely laid bed. And the most comfortable pillows I have ever felt gave me so much joy and the feeling of never wanting to go back home. I just want to live in that place forever. Yeah.
My story is about the future. How victims of domestic violence, illegal immigrants, both asylum seekers and refugees, get worried about life and how they come out of it eventually. To me, this is how I have viewed the future and life about it all, which is sometimes I see my life as a means of transportation. We all ride on. Yeah. All over the world, not just United Kingdom. Yeah. Some buses are delayed. Some terminated without getting to their destination. Some wait for a short time and continue their journey. Example, the driver has been told to wait for a short time. So I see it as a life. Then they continue after their journey for a while some changes the driver of the journey. And at times, they change the direction and divert to another place. At times, we always have to alight because the bus is not going through our direction. And at times, we miss our bus stop because the stop is closed at the moment. I came to realize all this can be rearranged only if we are calm and get the tactics. The journey may seem to be far, but we'll always get to our destination.
That's a nice poem. You should be quiet when I told you.
Okay, I have to say what I wrote anyway. It was the memory of a vacation to the mountain. Okay, my story goes like I enjoyed the gaze. My eyes traveled as far as they could. The higher I go, the grass, the trees, the flowers faded away. I could feel my heart pounding as I walked up the mountain. My muscles were gradually tightening. Well, I was determined. I had to persevere. My goal was to reach the mountain top. This will be my greatest achievement. I wore protective clothing in case anything happened, but to my surprise, the rocks, the trees were so welcoming. Oh, I was still writing, sorry.